The night my family erased me didn't start with yelling. It started with ketchup. I was standing in my parents' kitchen in Dayton, Ohio, the same kitchen I'd stood in since high school. Same yellow light humming overhead. Same chipped counter by the sink. Same sound of the dishwasher choking on silverware like it always did. I was 31 years old and holding a plate of burgers I'd just flipped, grease popping hot against my wrist. My father sat at the head of the table, eyes glued to a baseball game jaw, moving like he was chewing on something bitter. My mother floated between chairs, straightening napkins that didn't need straightening. My younger brother Evan sat hunched over his phone, thumbs flying, smiling at something none of us could see. I cleared my throat. "I got promoted today," I said. My voice came out steady. I'd practiced that. No one looked up. "Senior operations coordinator," I added. "They're transferring me." "Savannah." Evans snorted, still scrolling. "Hold on," he said, "not to me. To his phone. "Guys, we just hit our highest single-day sales." Dad grunted. "That's my boy." Mom clapped once. Soft. For him. I stood there, plate burning my hands. "They're paying relocation," I said. "It's a big step." Dad reached across the table without looking. "Ketchup." I slid the bottle toward him. That was the first snap. Small, quiet, internal. If you've ever had family treat you like you don't matter, like you're background noise in your own life, hit the like button. Subscribe. Stay with me. Because when people finally notice you, it's usually not for the reason you deserve. The burgers hit the table. No thank you, no congratulations. Just Evan tapping his screen, Mom hovering, Dad chewing. Evan finally looked up. "Hey," he said, eyes bright. "Mom, can you tell Emma to keep it down later? I'm doing a live stream tonight." I blinked. "Keep it down." Mom didn't hesitate. "Your brother needs focus," she said, already stacking plates. "This is important for his future." I felt my fingers curl into my sleeve. Fabric tight, nails biting. "It's important for mine too," I said. Dad sighed like I'd inconvenienced him. "Don't make this about you." That was the second snap. Later that night, I stood alone at the sink, scrubbing dishes that weren't mine. The house was quiet except for the dishwasher, and Evan laughing in his room at something someone typed to him online. Mom leaned against the counter behind me, arms crossed. "You know, she said your timing wasn't great tonight." I kept my eyes on the plate. "My timing?" "Your brother finally has momentum," she continued. "You coming in with big announcements, it feels competitive." I laughed once. Sharp. I wasn't competing. I was sharing. She shook her head. "You always read things the wrong way." There it was. Gaslight served warm. "I got a promotion," I said. "I'm moving states." "And we're happy for you," she replied quickly. Too quickly. "But you don't have to make it a thing." I turned the water off. The silence was loud. "Everything I do is a thing to you," I said. "Unless Evan does it." Her mouth tightened. "That's not fair," Dad called from the living room. "What's going on in there?" "Nothing," Mom said. "Emma's being sensitive." Sensitive, that word had weight, history. I dried my hands slowly, each movement measured. "I'm not sensitive," I said. "I'm tired." Mom scoffed. "We all make sacrifices." I looked at her then, really looked. The woman who never missed Evan's science fairs, who framed his first $500 invoice, who forgot my college graduation because Evan had a cold. What sacrifices, I asked. Her eyes hardened. "We gave you a roof, food, stability," Dad shouted again louder. "Can we not do this tonight?" I nodded. "You're right." I walked past them, up the stairs, into my room. I packed one bag, not dramatically, not angrily, just efficiently. Clothes, laptop, charger. The essentials of a life no one here seemed invested in. My phone buzzed once. A text from my Aunt Lydia. Still alive, I stared at it. Then I typed back, "Yes." She responded immediately. "Then listen to me. They don't hate you. They just don't see you, and they never will." I sat on the edge of my bed phone, heavy in my hand. Downstairs, Evan laughed again. Mom laughed with him this time. Dad clapped at the TV. I walked back into the kitchen at 5:12 a.m. The sky was still black. The house smelled like cold grease and detergent. I placed my key on the counter. It made a small sound. Metal on laminate. No one came. I paused. Half a second, long enough for hope to try once more. Nothing. I walked out. By the time the sun came up, they'd deleted my number. I found out weeks later standing in a dingy apartment in Savannah when I went to text my mother out of habit, and her name wasn't there. Neither was my father's. Neither was Evan's. At first I thought it was a glitch. Then I realized it was a decision. That was the third snap. But the cleanest one, the kind that doesn't bleed, the kind that seals. Savannah didn't welcome me. It tolerated me. The bus dropped me 2 blocks from the river engine, coughing once before pulling away like it couldn't wait to leave. Humid air pressed against my skin immediately. Heavy, sticky, the kind that clings to you whether you want it or not. I stood there with 1 duffel bag and a phone battery at 32%. That was it. The motel smelled like bleach and old smoke. 1 flickering lamp, carpet that never fully dried, a window that faced a brick wall close enough to touch. I paid cash for a week. The clerk didn't ask my name. I appreciated that more than he knew. First night, I lay on the bed fully dressed, shoes still on, listening to the air unit rattle like it might give up at any second. I didn't cry. I stared at the ceiling and thought about how quiet it was when no one expected anything from me. The next morning, I walked until my feet hurt. Savannah woke up slow. Spanish moss hanging like tired thoughts, tour boats coughing to life along the river, dock workers unloading coolers, crates, rope coils. No one cared who I was. No one knew my history. I blended into the humidity. That's where I found the flyer. Hand kneaded. Early hours. Pay weekly. I tore it down before someone else could. The marina office smelled like diesel and burnt coffee. A man with a sun-cracked face looked me up and down. "You ever work docks?" he asked. "No. You strong I don't quit." He stared a beat longer, then nodded once. "Start tomorrow." 6 a.m. Don't be late. I wasn't. Day 1, I scrubbed floors and counted life jackets. Day 2, inventory sheets. Day 3, hauling supplies while my hands blistered and split. I didn't complain. Complaints didn't buy meals. At night, I ate crackers on the motel bed and watched the numbers in my bank app not move. My phone stayed quiet. At first, I checked it obsessively. Every buzz made my chest tighten. Nothing. No calls, no texts, no accidental pocket dials. After a week, I realized something worse. The family group chat was gone. Not muted, not archived. Gone. I searched every variation of the name. Nothing came up. I scrolled my contacts slowly, thumb moving, like it didn't want to find the truth. Mom, gone. Dad, gone. Evan, gone. I hadn't deleted them. They had erased me back. That was the 4th snap. It didn't hurt the way I expected. It hollowed, cleaned something out, left space where hope had been sitting for years waiting for attention it was never going to get. That night I didn't call anyone. I opened my phone once and typed a message to my mother, deleted it, typed another to my father, deleted it too. I sat on the edge of the bed screen glowing in the dark and finally locked the phone. I slept better than I had in years. Work changed after that. Not the job itself the way I showed up. I stopped waiting for approval that never came, started watching how things actually worked, who made decisions, who knew the schedules, which captains ran late, which suppliers padded invoices. I asked questions without apologizing. Why do we load this boat first? Who signs off on fuel changes? What happens when a charter cancels last minute? Some people ignored me. Some shrugged. One older dispatcher squinted at me and said, "You pay attention." I nodded. I have to. By the 2nd month, they stopped handing me mops and started handing me clipboards. I learned routes, learned tides, learned which storms were bluffs and which weren't. My hands toughened. My posture changed. I stood like someone who expected to be listened to. Still, my phone stayed quiet, except Sundays. Every Sunday morning at exactly 9:02 a.m., a text came in, still breathing, from Lydia. That was it. No emojis, no follow-up questions, no pressure to explain myself. At first I replied with 1 word, yes. The next week, same question. Still breathing, yes. Weeks passed. The word yes started to feel insufficient, like lying by omission. So one Sunday I added a sentence, "Got a job. Docks." Her reply came seconds later. "Good. Keep going." She never asked how much I made, Never asked if I'd talked to my parents. Never told me to forgive anyone. She just stayed. That mattered more than advice ever could. By month 4, I'd moved out of the motel into a studio above a closed antique shop. The stairs creaked. The sink leaked. The window faced the river if you leaned hard to the left. It felt like progress. I bought a used desk from a thrift store and a chair with one uneven leg. I taped my work schedule to the wall. I liked knowing where I had to be. One night, out of habit, I opened an old social media account to download photos I didn't want to lose. Evan's face popped up immediately, smiling, arms crossed, standing in front of stacks of branded boxes. My parents in the background, proud like witnesses. Caption from my mother, "So proud of our boy." I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I closed the app. Deleted the account entirely. No announcement, no lurking, no watching from the shadows. If I was disappearing, I was going to do it properly. Winter in Savannah was mild. The work intensified. Boats came and went. Schedules grew complicated. Someone had to coordinate the chaos. It became me. They started calling my name over the radio. "Emma, can you reroute Charter 3? Emma, fuel delivery's late." "Emma, what do you want to do?" I answered, decisively. My first 4-digit paycheck hit my account on a Tuesday. I stared at the number longer than I should have, not because it was impressive, because it was mine. That night I bought real groceries. Protein, vegetables, coffee that didn't taste like punishment. I ate standing at the counter window. Open river sounds drifting in, no one to impress, no one to disappoint. The silence felt earned. Another Sunday. Still breathing. Yes, got a raise. Proud of you. Don't stop. That was Lydia. No confetti, no speeches, just presence. One evening, while locking up the office, I caught my reflection in the dark glass. Sunburned, tired, standing straighter than the girl who'd left Ohio with one bag. I didn't recognize myself completely. That felt right. I walked home along the river phone, heavy in my pocket, notifications empty, and for the first time the emptiness didn't feel like loss. It felt like freedom. If they'd deleted me from their world, then I was done trying to earn my way back in. I stopped chasing their approval the same way I stopped checking my phone at night. Cold turkey. No ceremony. Because if they could live without seeing me, I could live without needing to be seen. The promotion didn't come with applause. It came with a clipboard. Pete slid it across the desk one morning without looking up. The marina office smelled like printer toner and burnt coffee. "Ops supervisor," he said. "You run the board now. No speech, no handshake, just responsibility." I nodded once and took the clipboard. It was heavier than it looked. From that day on, the river answered to me. I controlled departures before sunrise, crew rotations, fuel loads, maintenance windows squeezed between charters that refused to be late. When something broke, my name crackled over the radio. When storms rolled in, I made the calls no one wanted to make. Cancel. Delay. Reroute. People didn't argue much. I didn't give them room to. I learned quickly that authority isn't volume, it's certainty. The first mistake I caught saved the company $15,000 in fuel penalties. The second prevented a near miss at the dock that would have shut us down for weeks. Pete looked at me differently after that. "You don't flinch," he said. "I already did my flinching," I replied. I didn't tell him where. My pay doubled within 6 months. I didn't celebrate. I opened a new savings account instead. I named it Freedom Fund. No jokes, no irony. Every extra dollar went there. Tips, bonuses, overtime, money I could have spent on better furniture or nights out. I didn't want things. I wanted leverage. At night I studied. Not inspirational quotes, not hustle videos, actual material, operations management, maritime law, asset protection, how people lost everything with one signature and how others never did. I learned words my parents never taught me. LLC, liability shield, depreciation, trust structures. The more I learned, the calmer I got, because calm comes from knowing where the exits are. The marina changed with the seasons. Tourists rotated. Staff came and went. I stayed. I learned which captains cut corners, which vendors padded invoices, which contracts needed renegotiation every year or they'd quietly bleed you dry. I fixed those. My name started showing up on emails that mattered. Run it by Emma. Emma signed off. Emma wants revisions. It didn't make me proud, it made me safe. That was the difference. The boat came later. Not the shiny kind, not the Instagram kind. An older vessel with a repaired hull and faded trim, solid engine hours, good bones. The kind of boat people overlook because it doesn't beg for attention. I bought it quietly through a broker who didn't ask personal questions. When the keys hit my palm, there was no rush, no tears, just a steady exhale. I named her Northbound. Not because I was going back, because I never would. I didn't post photos, didn't tell coworkers, didn't tell Lydia. The boat wasn't a trophy, it was infrastructure. I spent weekends learning every inch of her. Systems, wiring, weak points, strengths. I logged expenses meticulously, treated her like a business asset, not a dream. That discipline paid for itself faster than anything I'd ever owned. That's when Daniel Moore entered the picture. He showed up one afternoon in pressed khakis and a windbreaker that looked too clean for the docks. Clipboard under one arm, calm eyes, the kind that noticed details without advertising it. Insurance review, he said, extending a hand. Marine assets. I shook it, firm, neutral. We walked the boat together. He asked questions most people didn't think to ask. Who owns her? Any business use. What's your exposure if someone slips? I answered carefully. At the end, he closed his clipboard. You're operating this like someone who plans to keep what she builds, he said. I do, I replied. That earned a small smile. Over coffee later, he explained the gaps. Not in a condescending way. In a precise way. You're personally exposed, he said, tapping the table once. One bad incident and everything you've worked for becomes a shared asset. Courts don't care how hard you worked. I stared into my cup. Fixable absolutely, he said. If you move now, we set up an LLC. Clean, simple. The boat transferred in. Operations layered correctly. Then a trust. Walls. Not to hide behind, but to keep people out. I signed where he pointed, asked questions he didn't expect, took notes, implemented everything. Daniel nodded once at the end. You're ahead of most people who think they're ahead. I took that as a compliment. Sundays stayed the same, still breathing. Yes. Bought a boat. She replied an hour later. Of course you did. Keep going. No surprise, no probing, no request for photos. That restraint was a gift. By year 2, my title changed again. Operations supervisor became operations director. My salary jumped. My workload tripled. I hired 2 assistants. Trained them myself. Gave them systems, not promises. We cut idle time. Renegotiated fuel contracts. Expanded routes. Revenue followed discipline the way tides follow the moon. I upgraded my apartment to a modest condo near the river. Nothing flashy, but it had a view and a door that locked solid. Northbound sat in her slip like she belonged there. I lived quietly, worked hard, documented everything. No social media, no updates, no subtle flexes. I learned something important during that time. People who want access to your life pay attention to what you broadcast. I broadcast nothing. Daniel became a quarterly meeting, then an occasional call, then a resource. He never asked about my family. I never offered. He did say one thing that stuck. Most people think wealth is what attracts predators, he said. It's actually visibility. I nodded. I'd already learned that lesson the hard way. On my 33rd birthday, I grilled fish on the back deck of Northbound alone. No candles, no cake. Just the sound of water and the steady hum of systems doing what they were designed to do. My phone buzzed once. Still breathing, I smiled faintly. Yes, stronger. I put the phone down and looked out at the river. Boats passed, people waved. None of them knew my story. That was intentional. I wasn't rich, I wasn't famous, I wasn't impressive to strangers. But I was protected, and for the first time in my life, no one could take what I was building without my permission. That was the real rise. Silent, structured, untouchable. It happened because I let my guard down for 30 seconds. That's all it took. Lydia was visiting, one of her quiet drop-ins. No announcement, no schedule. She showed up with groceries, a paper bag, sweating condensation sunglasses pushed into her hair like she belonged there. We grilled fish on the dock, sat with our feet hanging over the edge, talked about weather work, nothing that carried weight. At some point she stood up, squinted at the sun, and said, "Stand there." I didn't think twice. I leaned against the rail of northbound hands in my pockets, looking past her toward the river. I heard the phone click. Just once. She smiled to herself. "For me," she said. I nodded. "Sure." I didn't know she still posted on Facebook. I found out 3 hours later. I was in the condo shoes, kicked off, laptop open, reviewing crew schedules for the next week. My phone buzzed. Not Lydia's tone, not Daniel's. A different vibration. Unknown number. I ignored it. Then another, then a third. I checked the screen. Aunt Carol. "Is this Emma?" My stomach dropped, cold and immediate. Before I could respond, Lydia's name lit up. "Did you see it?" she texted. "See what?" She sent the screenshot. There I was, on the boat, sun behind me, water clean and blue, calm on my face I hadn't realized I'd earned. Caption underneath simple and deadly. She built this alone. No hashtags, no explanations, just truth. The likes were already climbing, comments stacking fast, so proud of her. Wow, didn't know she was doing that well. That's impressive. I stared at the screen. "Lydia," I called. She answered immediately. "Before you say it," she said, voice calm, "they already knew you existed. They just chose to forget." I closed my eyes. My phone buzzed again. This time I recognized the number, even though I'd deleted it years ago. Dad. 5 years of silence. One text. Saw the picture. "Are you in Savannah?" That was it. No hello. No apology. No how are you. Just location confirmation. My chest tightened, then went numb. The next notification came before I could respond. Mom reacted to the post. A heart. That tiny red symbol hit harder than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. A heart after 5 years of nothing. I handed the phone to Lydia when she walked back into the room. "They're awake," I said. She didn't look surprised. "Of course they are." Within 24 hours, the trickle became a flood. Cousins I hadn't spoken to since childhood suddenly remembered my name. Old family friends messaged variations of the same sentence. "So good to see you thriving. We should reconnect. Your parents must be so proud." I didn't answer any of them. Then Dad texted again. "We need to talk. Call me." I didn't. The next message came 2 hours later. "Your mother is worried. You disappeared." I laughed once. Out loud, short and sharp. "Disappeared." Lydia watched me from the kitchen table. "They're rewriting history," she said. "That's step 1. "What's step 2? I asked. She didn't hesitate. "Access." She was right. 2 days later, I got an email confirmation forwarded to me by accident. 3 tickets. Dayton to Savannah. Arrival Wednesday, 2:10 p.m. Names listed. Richard Collins, Susan Collins, Evan Collins. No one asked if they could come. They just booked the flight. The Marina camera caught them before I saw them myself. I was in the office when the feed pinged. 3 figures at the gate. Suitcases. Evan in sunglasses, grinning too wide. Mom clutching her purse like she might lose it. Dad standing tall, already scanning the boats. I felt nothing. That scared me more than anger would have. I walked down to the dock slowly, deliberately. The sun was brutal, the air thick. They spotted me at the same time. Emma Dad waved like we were late to dinner, not 5 years overdue to a conversation. Mom's eyes flicked past me immediately. To northbound. Evan whistled. "Wow." I stopped at the gate. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Dad stepped forward. "We flew in to see you. You didn't ask." Mom smiled thinly. "We're family." I didn't move. "State your business." That threw them off. "Just a second." Long enough. Evan recovered first. "Come on," he said. "Let us on. We just want to talk." "Here," I asked. On my boat, Dad nodded. "We're proud of you. We want to see what you've built." I unlocked the gate and stepped aside. Touch nothing. They boarded like tourists. Dad ran a hand along the rail. "Didn't know you had it in you." Mom sat on a cushion, eyes everywhere but my face. "It's nice." Evan pulled out his phone. This is sick. I stood near the helm, arms crossed. Why are you really here? Silence. Dad sighed like I was the unreasonable one. Straight talk then. Evan jumped in. My suppliers changed terms. They want upfront payment now. Mom added quickly. It's temporary. Dad nodded. 60,000, that's all. There it was. Clean, blunt, undeniable. Evan smiled, trying to soften it. Just a bridge loan. You're clearly doing well. Mom leaned forward. Family helps family. I felt a slow, steady heat rise. Not explosive, controlled. You deleted my number, I said. Dad waved it off. That was a misunderstanding. You removed me from the group chat, I continued. For 5 years, Mom frowned. You left. You erased me, I said. Now I'm a bank. Evan scoffed. Don't be dramatic. That was the 5th snap. The final one. Get off my boat, I said. Mom gasped. Emma. Now. Dad's voice hardened. After everything we did for you, I met his eyes. You did nothing, and you're not doing this. Evan's smile vanished. You owe us. I stepped back and opened the gate. Leave, I said, or security will escort you. They froze, shocked, offended. Mom's voice cracked thin and sharp. I raised you better than this. I looked at her, really looked. Then I said it. You raised me to survive without you. That shut her up. They left without another word, suitcases rolling, Evan muttering. Dad stiff with anger. Mom crying quietly, eyes still flicking back at the boat like she might memorize it. The gate closed behind them with a solid click. I locked it. Lydia texted 2 minutes later, saw the cameras. You okay? I stared at the river, better than ever, because now I knew. They didn't come back because they missed me. They came back because they saw what I owned, and that meant the next move was mine. They came back the next morning, not with suitcases this time, with entitlement. I was already on the boat when I saw them at the gate again. Dad first, shoulders squared. Mom half a step behind, lips pressed tight. Evan scrolling on his phone like this was a business meeting he planned to dominate. I didn't greet them. I waited. Dad cleared his throat. We didn't finish the conversation yesterday. You finished it, I said. You just didn't like the answer. Mom stepped forward. Emma, please. Let's not do this in public. I glanced around. Early morning, empty dock, gulls, water slapping wood. This is private property, I said. You chose the venue. Evan smirked. Relax. We're not here to fight. No, I said. You're here to collect. That wiped the smirk clean. I unlocked the gate and let them on one last time. Not out of kindness, out of clarity. We stood on the deck. The air was heavy, quiet enough to hear the rigging creak. 5 years, I said. Let's count them. Dad sighed. Do we really need yes? Year 1, I continued. My birthday. I turned 26 alone in a rented room with a broken AC. You posted Evan's launch party that same night. Mom opened her mouth. I held up a hand. Year 2. I texted the family chat about my first promotion. Read receipts. 0 replies. You co-signed Evan's warehouse lease that month. Evan scoffed. That was business. Year 3, I said. I bought this boat. Quietly. No one knew. You funded his rebrand. Dad's jaw tightened. Year 4. I became director. Salary doubled. I emailed you. Twice. You sent Evan to a conference in Vegas. Mom whispered. We didn't know how much you were hurting. You chose not to know, I said. Year 5, I finished. This week. Silence until you needed $60,000. The river kept moving. Indifferent. Dad stepped closer. Families make mistakes. Evan jumped in. You left. You don't get to rewrite it like we abandoned you. That's gaslighting, I said calmly. And I'm done entertaining it. Mom's eyes filled. We're your parents. I nodded once. And you lived 5 years without me. Dad tried a softer tone. You didn't lose anything by helping your brother. I met his gaze. You didn't lose me, I said. You chose to live without me. The words landed hard, clean. Evan's voice sharpened. So you're really going to let me fail? Yes, Mom gasped. How can you be so cold? I learned from the best I said. Dad's face darkened. After everything we did for you? Stop, I said. You don't get to invoice me for neglect. Evan took out his phone. Fine. I'll crowdsource. I'll tag you. People will ask questions. I stepped forward, close enough that he froze. Try me, I said. Silence again. I opened the gate. Get off my boat. Mom started crying then, real tears, or convincing ones. Emma, she said, voice breaking. I raised you better than this. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. You raised me to survive without you, I said. Security arrived before they could answer. 2 guards, professional, neutral. Dad protested. She's our daughter. The guard didn't blink. Private vessel. You've been asked to leave. They were escorted off. Evan shouting, Dad stiff with rage. Mom looking back at me like she was trying to memorize my face. The gate shut. Locked. Final. That afternoon my phone exploded. Emails, voicemails, guilt dressed up as concern, threats disguised as prayers. I deleted all of it. Weeks passed. Evan's startup collapsed when suppliers pulled inventory. Bankruptcy followed. Chapter 7. Assets liquidated. My parents sold the house to cover debts. Still lost it. Downsized to an apartment far from anything familiar. I didn't check their social media. I expanded operations instead. 2 more vessels, better contracts, promoted from within, paid people fairly, built systems that didn't depend on one person's ego. I chose my family with actions. Crew dinners, Sunday check-ins, Lydia's steady presence, Daniel's quiet counsel, people who showed up without asking what they could get. On a calm evening, I stood on the bow of Northbound and watched the lights come on across the river. No notifications, no drama, just peace. And I finally understood something simple and brutal. Peace is not what you keep. It's what you refuse to let back in.